to do something as well. But it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this and to launch the research themes. We've been trying to launch the research themes for a little while. We've kind of launched them online as well and kept having to kind of change that, and we're forced online. Great now to actually be able to do this in person. And I just want to open it by talking a bit about why the research themes are important. And so basically, if you think about it, in keeping with the kind of new UKRI research strategy from 2022 to 2027, which is called Transforming Tomorrow Together, which was published last month, you'll notice that what we're doing is something that they're recommending. We were a bit ahead of them in this game, in that we're bringing together thematic areas of research and areas that are interrelated and value-led in a more agile system, with the aim to achieve a unity of purpose, working across the university and with our many stakeholders, and very nice to see some of our external stakeholders here today as well. So our approach chimes with the new UKRI strategy, which states that we must seize this historic moment of national reinvention to transform our economy and our society, embedding research and innovation across them and creating opportunities and benefits for all. It also insists that we must create a fully joined up system that leverages clusters of research and innovation excellence throughout the UK, so that problems can rapidly find solutions and solutions can rapidly find markets. There's many things there that obviously speak to us. The first of those is thinking about sort of geographical location and where that takes us. And obviously it's important in terms of the new levelling up agenda that we think about how we make most of that. You'll see as part of the strategy, UKRI are now talking about how they have to make sure that they do give research monies outside of the golden triangle of London, Oxford and Cambridge. A common theme throughout the UKRI strategy is the necessity of breaking down barriers within the current system, which it claims is too siloed, and that's precisely what our new research themes aim to do as well. So today's event formally launches the new themes. We're going to have introductions by each of our theme directors in a moment. And those themes were chosen as part of our research transformation programme, based on where we have the most activity in relation to outputs and external grant capture. And they all reflect an overall commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we know are particularly important to us, given that we are host to SDG 16. The new UKRI strategy will undoubtedly inform the next research excellence framework, and also is impacting on our own knowledge creation strategy, which is under development and will be considered at academic board next week. The knowledge creation strategy takes its lead from the university strategy, and you'll see that the new research branding is aligned with the university strategy on a page and highlights the research themes of peace, equality and social justice, net zero, living in a digital society, lifelong well-being, and creative and heritage industries. So there's posters in the foyer area which welcomes you and talks about some of the current projects in those areas, but also 5 blank posters for you to add your own suggestions about where you'd like to see those themes develop. And so please, if you haven't had a chance to do that already, do please do it at the end of this session. If you are joining us from home, then do please send in any of those suggestions to the research theme leads as well. I know they'll happily pick those up. The directors do want to hear from you in any projects that you've got related to their themes, and particularly how you'd like to see that work developed. So we've got many examples of really excellent and groundbreaking research here at DMU, and I'll just highlight a few of those. So in the creative industries, a team of 13 DMU academics led by Professor Rachel Granger, who's one of the directors of the theme as well. She's a research director of creative and heritage industries. They're working together on a £500,000 project with Leicester City Council and Fashion Enter Limited to coordinate better support to textile manufacturers and local textile workers. And the story itself of that research has been featured in Leicestershire Live, Business Live, Fashion Capital, and the one and only magazine, Knitting Industry. It feels a bit like, have I got news for you, doesn't it? I can ask you to fill in some slogans around knitting industry in a moment. Around peace, equality and social justice, following the publication of his book, Reporting the Siege of Sarajevo, Professor Kenneth Morrison was quoted in a long read feature in the Independent newspaper on the long-term effects of the Balkan conflict, where neighbours were forced to kill each other. And obviously a lot of those issues around conflict are rather sadly with us today as well. In lifelong wellbeing, new research from Katie Laird and her team was reported in Nursing Times, and it's shown that the poor quality of washing facilities at hospitals is prompting nurses to wash their uniforms at home, which is often less effective in killing infections. But the thing that's interesting about all those pieces of research, and it's really distinctive about research at DMU, is the way in which those case studies bring together our excellent research with external sectors and agencies to create economic, social and cultural impact. And this really tallies with the focus of UKRI's new strategy, because at the heart of it is how you bring together the talent of people, the connectivity of place, the originality of innovation, and how they can all be brought together to create impact. So thank you. I'd now like to move on to the introduction of the actual themes themselves as well. So just going through it, the first one of those is around peace, equality and social justice. I'll be introducing each of the theme directors who will speak for about 5 minutes. At the end of that, we'll do a panel session. So do please be thinking about your questions as they're presenting to you. Peace, equality and social justice is led by Professor Kenneth Morrison, who specialises in the modern history of the Western Balkans, with an emphasis on Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it is the author of 6 books focusing on the region. He has extensive experience as a consultant to government and international organisations, and was the specialist advisor to the House of Lords International Relations Committee for their UK and the Future of the Western Balkans inquiry. Kenneth is a member of the HRC's Peace and Conflict Culture Network, which is leading a group of peace museums dealing with post-conflict issues and contested histories. And he's recently been appointed as an academic consultant to the Historical Museum of Bosnia and Herzegovina in Sarajevo. So thank you very much, Kenneth. Over to you.
Thank you. The fundamental challenges that we all face today, whether that be domestically or internationally. Now, of course, we're all facing the challenges of the post-pandemic world and recovering from 2 years of essentially lockdowns and living with COVID-19. But perhaps as a consequence of that, we've also entered into a new period of geopolitical flux. So we have severe economic challenges globally, security challenges globally. These issues are myriad, they're complex, but they're nevertheless at the very heart of what we as an academic community should be thinking about and perhaps shaping our work or moving our work towards. We need to engage with these problems. Now, PESG aligns neatly to UN SDG 16, Peace, Justice and Strong Institutions, for which, of course, DMU is an a global educational hub. And many of the objectives of the theme are consistent with SDG 16. SDG 16 is known as the great enabler. Really, without peace, without strong institutions, there can be no justice, there can be no equality, and so forth. So SDG 16 is very much embedded into the PESG theme. Now, how does it apply to you as researchers? Well, broadly defined, it incorporates a very wide range of subjects across the university. It could be people working in law, people working in politics. It could be people working in any of the faculties, in health and life sciences, business and law, in ADH. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of research we do at DMU that actually, although you may not think about it, aligns nicely with PESG. So if we think about, for example, peace building, reducing violence, conflict mitigation, building sustainable societies. Much of this is at the heart of our first conference this year, building and consolidating stable societies. But also issues such as tackling gender and racial inequalities. Of course, we have the Stephen Lawrence Centre here at DMU, which of course aligns very nicely with that. In terms of those working on media, particularly media discourse, promoting freedom in the media, building a strong civil society. Topics like protecting children, women and refugees from exploitation, the rule of law, justice, equal access to said justice, access to educational and democratic opportunities as well. We have one big project here run by Professor Dave Walsh, fantastic project looking at national and transnational organised crime, financial crime, corruption, and so forth. Again, this work aligns very nicely with PESG. And then finally, developing and consolidating strong, accountable and transparent institutions and strong democratic political institutions, as well as inclusive growth and promoting health inequality. These are the kind of sub-themes, if you like, that fit nicely into the framework of PESJ. Now, what are our objectives? Well, why create these themes, and what do we as theme directors wish to do? Well, of course, we want to improve the research environment at the university. We want to promote research excellence, and this university does have research excellence. And sometimes I wondered if we're not confident enough in conveying the standard, the excellence of research that we do here at DMU. Through the themes, actually the themes can be a mechanism for better promoting some of the research that we do. We want to encourage greater multidisciplinarity. We want to nurture multidisciplinary projects, not just across the institution, but actually between institutions. Many of the big bids now, or much of the research money, UKRI money, is going to collaborative pieces of work. So it's important that we are part of that as well, that we're not just thinking about developing bids within faculties or within the university, but across faculties, across the university, and co-collaborative bids as well. We want to build research of national and international significance, and we want to build impact into that. Not necessarily just be thinking about impact case studies per se, but building impact into the research that we do. And of course, that's going to be very important for the next REF or for the next iteration of it. One of the things I will be doing, and some of the theme directors, my colleagues, have been doing already, is to promote projects by providing some seed funding to get things up and running, or to buy some time for individual academics or groups to spend developing research bids. Ultimately, what we want to do, although we know that this is going to be a long road, but we need to start doing this work now, is to increase the number of research bids that are generated and increase research income from UKRI bodies or other funders. So the first project that we have with PSG is the conference I mentioned. Two-day conference taking place on the 19th and 20th of May. The theme of this conference is building and consolidating peaceful and just societies. When I put the call out for the conference, I wasn't sure what to expect. Would we get a significant number of applications? I'm glad to say that we have a program that is very, very exciting, showcasing some of the best research that we have here at DMU that aligns not just with peace, equality and social justice, but with SDG 16. So we're going to have a range of panels from individual researchers and institutes across the university, and we have a few external speakers as well as an excellent keynote. A colleague of mine, Paul Lowe, who worked on a very interesting project called Art and Reconciliation. He's a wonderful speaker. He'll be giving the closing keynote for the conference as well. There are around 150, 160 places available for the conference. Registration will open tomorrow, and I hope that that many of you will wish to attend. So I know that's been short, only 5 minutes, but I hope that gives you an idea of the basic parameters of peace, equality and social justice and what our objectives are moving forward. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Oh, sorry. Thanks, that's great, Kenneth. So we're going to move on now to net zero. We've got a couple of our themes that are kind of co-led by people as well. So I guess you've got 2.5 minutes each of you, however you're going to do it. So Net Zero Projects is led by Professor Raffaella Villa, who's a Professor of Environmental Bioengineering and Interim Associate Dean of Research and Innovation in the Faculty of Chem. Raffiella's research includes over 60 publications, and she's made substantive contributions to waste biotransformations, bioremediation and anaerobic digestion. She's joined in leading that theme by the co-director Mark Charlton, who's Associate Director of Sustainable Development at DMU and leads on SDG 16 for us, and he has extensive experience in public engagement. So thank you very much to you both.
Hello everyone, thanks for this. I'm not handing over 2.5 minutes to Raffaella, who has chosen to sit this out, which is something that she'll sorely regret in 5 minutes' time, I'm sure. But, yeah, this is our 5 minutes to save the planet, as it were. I'm co-director of this theme, and I'm delighted to be working with Raffaella, who's a deeply scientific person, and I think we've got a really good complementary mix because we've got a scientific approach and my personal approach, which is around democratic behaviours that people need to adopt in order to achieve net zero. So very much about doing scientific things, but then engaging people in that science to change the way they behave and work towards a net zero future. There's a little model there of what we need to achieve by 2050, which is bluntly take enough carbon out of the atmosphere to keep the temperature below rising another 1.5 degrees. Rafi and I have worked closely together over the past couple of months, and we share a value which we understand that the university has some brilliant research. Like Kenneth said, we've got some excellent research, and we're also very good at bringing organisations, communities and individuals to work together in groups and achieve goals and collaborate. And very much our vision for the theme is around that idea. So we've got exceptional links to local communities, and we've got demonstrations of good research that we're undertaking there. We have great opportunities to develop new partnerships with organisations. So this is really something that has stemmed from the COP26 conference, certainly in my engagement in the city and the region since then, is more and more businesses are coming forward saying, we're on board with this idea of net zero, but what is it and how can we achieve it? And luckily, we've got lots of people within this university who want to engage and work and collaborate on these ideas and develop new research from those relationships. And finally, net zero for low carbon transmissions. And this is really something that's going on already in the university, developing new practices, new ways of heating our homes, new ways of delivering transportation that actually can work towards the idea of taking carbon out of the atmosphere and helping to reduce the target and keep us 1.5 degrees cooler. So these are a couple of examples of the diversity of work that's going on. So in the first idea that we are great at engaging with communities and businesses. When we talk about local communities, by the way, we obviously care very much about our city, but we also care about the communities that are local to the people who are living in them. So we're not specifically talking about any local community, but a generalised idea of local communities. And we've got some great work going on in the Faculty of Business and Law around work towards net zero transport, and in manufacturing we've got some really exciting work going on. There's this example here. By the way, if you've been selected as an example, we're not singling you out. There's great research going on, and this is a 5-minute presentation, not 2 hours. So So if I've left your research out, then it's not that I don't like you, it's like I just don't have room for it. So, but there's some amazing diversity in this work, and our textile research in ADH in particular has really been an inspiring piece of work, and it's drawing a lot of attention both nationally and internationally. So developing new opportunities and partnerships. We've seen some brilliant work by Dr. Andrew Reeves, actually answering some of the questions to local businesses and organisations about how we work towards becoming carbon neutral and achieving the goal of net zero. Likewise, bringing people together and stimulating new ideas, as is in the case of Dr. Sun, and I believe there's a conference coming up in June for that. And this is where we present some good examples of the types of work that are going on in our faculties. This are specific to IESD and some of the great work that's going on there in terms of how we heat our homes, how we reduce reliance on certain fuels, and as we've seen with the conflict in Ukraine, we should really become more reliant on sourcing our own power rather than bringing it in from overseas or a reliance on coal. So these are examples of the good work that's going on, but we wanted to really emphasise that we don't think that there's a discipline within the university that shouldn't have net zero on its mind in some way. It's a huge global issue that affects every walk of life. And in that spirit, I encourage people to think about how your work and your research relates to this idea that we need to work together democratically and scientifically to bring to maintain the planet at its current temperature. To that end, we've got a couple of events that are bringing people together from across disciplines. We've got a sandpit workshop where we're going to bring people together and discuss net zero issues within individual disciplines and bring a cross-disciplinary discussion around that and try and abstract themes where we can start developing new research. So please come along to that. And then we've got a grand challenge on Monday the 16th of May, and this is quite exciting. A local football team has written to me, Leicester Nirvana, and said we would like to be Britain's first amateur net zero football team. How do we achieve that? So rather than me answer that, I'm hoping that everyone in this room will come along to that event and come up with the ideas for how that will be achieved. And in the spirit of demonstrating how good the DMU is bringing organisations into such conversations, the professional football team that's currently on target to achieve this, Forest Green Rovers, who are currently top of Division 2, they want to participate in the project, as do a small team in Germany who have achieved it in their amateur status in a small place called Peitz near Cottbus in the former East German region. So there are lots of interesting developments within net zero. I encourage anyone to get involved and just see how your work connects. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks very much, Mark. It'd be good to get a Premier League team involved in that project as well. Thank you. So I'd like now to introduce the Lifelong Wellbeing project, and it's being led by Professor Raghu Raghavan. He is a professor of mental health, and his research consists of exploring the conceptualization of dementia in minority ethnics, in faith, belief systems, and mental health recovery, in mental health literacy, and research participation from diverse ethnic communities. And he's published widely on disability, ethnicity, and service improvement. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to talk about lifelong health and well-being, lifelong well-being in short, really, and what we can actually do in terms of the research development, capacity building, and the kind of critical mass that we have in lifelong well-being research, how we actually take that forward to the next dimension, to the next level of activities that would actually give us national and international visibility and credibility. So that's what I'm basically actually going to talk about here. So lifelong well-being, obviously everybody has been talking about well-being, lifelong well-being over the last couple of years in terms of the pandemic, and everybody has been talking about mental health and well-being too over the last couple of years because of the pandemic. But here we're talking about broader context, everything that actually includes health and health interventions, health assessment, and all those kind of activities really. This is an overarching research stream, and we want to actually explore that from an interdisciplinary perspective. Obviously, unidisciplinary research is particularly fine, that's true, but I think from an interdisciplinary perspective, so that we can actually address collectively some of those solutions. And it is also about feeling good and functioning well in an individual's experience of their life, and the comparison of life circumstances with social, cultural norms and values, because health, according to our definition of the National Health Service, is still looked upon from a very much of a reductionist model of just purely health interventions. But health and well-being is actually much more than that. So I think wellness is actually achieved by healthy balance of physical, mental, cultural, and social health. So our vision in this theme of lifelong well-being is to
HRC Midlands 4 Cities doctoral training partnerships, where I understand we had a bumper year this year in successful PhD students, which is great. It's also led by Professor Justin Smith, and Justin is a professor of cinema and television and director of the DMU's Cinema and Television History Institute. He's currently leading a major HRC research funded project, Transforming Middlemarch, a genetic edition of Andrew Davies' 1994 BBC adaptation of George Eliot's novel. So great, welcome to you. I don't know how you're doing, if you're doing 2.5 minutes each or playing one person. I think you're doing the team event here. Thank you.
Thanks for that kind introduction. Yes, we're going to attempt a 2.5 minute each challenge, starting with Rachel.
I'll go first. Okay. For Justin and I, it gives us great pleasure to lead on creative and heritage. For DMU, it's at the heart, it's really at the origin of our institution. We've always had creative industries here and heritage too. And I think for our research centres and institutes today, we're leading on fantastic research. And as Katie said, we're also right at the heart of the HRC Midlands 4 Cities scheme. We're absolutely delighted to be part of that. We've really enjoyed talking to you over the last few months since our soft launch, and that's really helped us to think about our priorities for action. Our priorities for action, as we see it, are to build on that established excellence and the research and our reputation, including work on place-based activity, especially cultural regeneration, design and heritage. That's not exclusively so, but there are 3 particular areas that we're looking at. Also practice-based and recreative practice techniques, which we truly believe we are leading on in the country. We want to really develop that further. And also to drive, as a number of us want to, interdisciplinary research, and not only to develop new areas of research, but also to use creative leadership to develop a number of research themes. So I just want to quickly go through those. In terms of cultural regeneration and civic growth, we're absolutely delighted that we've developed a new civic and cultural regeneration group here at the university, meeting on the 10th of May. We have developed a creative conference in the city where we're going to be working with industry in June to develop a creative expo. We are already got underway a creative university agreement with a very big plan around a cultural plan, and working with that. We've successfully developed Beta X project, which is a fantastic project in its own right. I encourage you to go and have a look at that in the city. And of course, we couldn't, not talk about Leicester without talking about the Richard III developments and the connections there. I think going forward, what we're really interested in doing is developing place-based sense making in the city, research around that, thinking about research that promotes work on identities, memories, and to further some of the work on hidden cultures. In the design area, design and aesthetics value, we recognise Leicester's national importance in design. It very rarely gets discussed, but we have the biggest concentration of the design industry anywhere in the country, and yet I think there's a lot more that we can do with that. For that reason, we're investing in a design summit in June, which we're doing with industry. We've developed an industry-led design directory and a new intelligence infrastructure that's going to help us with that. And we are developing Research Council funding around modelling the impact of design. The future here is partnership development and working with stakeholders such as the Design Council.
Thanks, Rachel. Heritage is the other element of our theme, and once again we're building on existing strengths in heritage research across faculties, with surprising breadth across faculties at DMU. We're launching a heritage forum, an internal discussion group kicking off on the 11th of May, and we're building on a number of existing projects that really have demonstrated our success of our research in this field. My colleague Monia Achari in the Cinema and Television History Institute is leading an AHRC follow-on funding for impact and engagement project celebrating India at 75. It's a specific initiative the AHRC have prioritised with an exhibition at the LCB depot kicking off next month. There is going to be an international workshop on recreative practices that Liz Lambourne is coordinating in June. We have PhD research coming through, which is funded by the HRC through Midlands 4 Cities, that is investigating the longitudinal values of Victorian heritage, and that's one of a number of local projects looking at aspects of Leicester's heritage. Katie kindly mentioned the project that I'm coordinating at the moment in partnership with the Digital Humanities and Library at DMU in adapting Andrew Davis' adaptation of Middlemarch. And my colleague is currently, we've been able to seed fund a project that is cataloguing the British Federation of Film Societies archives, and that's been supported by the British Academy in a small grant application. So we're looking at a number of ways in which we can develop and promote DMU as a centre of excellence in research heritage practices. What sits alongside that is established networks at DMU of practice-based research, and practice-based work as a methodology extends well beyond artistic and creative practice across the humanities, and is an increasingly dynamic and developing area of research. A practice-based forum has already been established by the ADR in the Faculty of Art, Design and Humanities, but there's a number of colleagues working within practice-based research more widely. Serena Dyer's innovative project, The Labour of the Stitch, which is a a heritage project that involves recreating design practices. The Photographic History Institute is also developing recreation as one of the key methodologies of its historical work. And within creative technologies in the Faculty of Computing, Engineering and Media, colleagues in the Institute of Creative Technologies and in music technology have a well-established track records in developing practice-based research. So once again, our goal is to develop DMU's research as a centre of excellence in recreative and co-creative methods. Rachel.
Thanks, Justin. I think what we find time and time again is that creative industries research excellence, but also leadership, has a role to play in a number of research themes at this university. Even today, I've heard about Talent 25, Wellbeing. I've heard about, I think we're going to hear about digital score in the digital side, sustainable textiles, arts, media. And I think for Justin and I, we do believe that actually creative industries and heritage is pervasive to a lot of things that we do at this university. I think for that reason, for us, interdisciplinary potential is absolutely key here going forward. Yes, we can work with the established centres and institutes, but for us, it's about opening up the potential through interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary and interdisciplinary research. I think we've got some plans for bringing in psychology, marketing, other areas to help us do that. I think it's also about working with local and national partners to co-design research for impact. And I think, as Mark said, about making sure that we don't have that confidence issue. We've got an international and national role to play. And for Justin and I, that's a big, important area. I think going forward, just to thank you all for listening to us today, I think what will be important for us going forward is to mobilise as many of you as we can into the new research groups and panels. And I think to concentrate on interdisciplinary practice-based research, because we're very excited. We think we've got a key role to play in post-COVID recovery. So thanks very much for listening to us today.
Okay, thanks very much. On to the last one, and you might think that if we have a research theme called Living in a Digital Society, the last thing that you would do is to appoint a Shakespeare specialist to lead that. However, that's what we've done. And it does make the point that actually digital is everything and it's all around us. And it's the thing when I talk about digital to the faculty deans, I say I'm talking to all of you now. So we're delighted to announce Gabriel Egan, who's Professor of Shakespeare Studies and author of several books and co-editor of the new Oxford Shakespeare Complete Works. He is a pioneering researcher in computational approaches to literary historical textual analysis, and he's currently researching the future of literary editing. Thanks very much, Gabriel.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, colleagues. It's almost impossible these days to navigate the world without encountering computers. They've been built into everything. If you walked here today or you cycled, well done. Good for you. But if you used a train or a motor car, unless it was an especially old motor car, then in fact you used a computer. Today's cars and aeroplanes are essentially computers fitted with wings and wheels and engines, rather than vehicles to which computers have been added. The integration of computers into everyday life has distinctly positive and negative aspects, hence my image of a double-edged sword in this slide. When designing and testing their new 737 MAX aeroplane, the Boeing Aircraft Corporation found that it was handled significantly differently from its predecessor 737s, and so pilots would need expensive retraining. To avoid this, Boeing wrote computer software that made the new aeroplane mimic the handling of the old one. They added the notorious MCAS software, but omitted to mention this in the aircraft manual, nor to tell the pilots how to override it. The pilots of Lion Air Flight 610 and Ethiopian Airlines 302 could not disable the software when it malfunctioned, and both aircraft crashed, killing 346 people. Or consider the Horizon financial software that implausibly reported to the senior management of the post office that 2,000 sub-postmasters were stealing from their businesses. That's a quarter of the entire workforce. Despite such IT disasters, our collective faith in digital technologies remains strong for good reason. It is remarkably reliable. Every time you launch Microsoft Word, about 13 million zeros and ones are copied from your hard disk to your computer's memory, one at a time, without a single digit being corrupted. That's a long number. If you started to say it now at 1 digit per second, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you'd be finished just in time for the start of term in October. Have you ever known an ATM machine to give you the wrong amount of cash? In over 40 years of use, I have not. In some digital systems, then, failure is vanishingly rare. So we have remarkable technical reliability upon which we increasingly depend for our everyday lives, combined with appalling social consequences for some kinds of failure. In risk management, this is known to be an intractable problem. If we knew what to do about low probability, high impact risks, we would have avoided the entire COVID pandemic. We would have long ago agreed what to do to eliminate carbon dioxide emissions. Digital technologies also have medium impact, medium probability risks that we do not understand. Have we made a terrible mistake putting into every teenager's pocket a hyper-connected, location-aware supercomputer? The social media on these devices feed teenage narcissism and expose them to hardcore pornography. Yet, as you'll see from the posters outside for today's event, researchers at DMU have been investigating how mobile phone technologies can be socially and psychologically positive, and how artificial intelligence that tracks consumer preferences can also detect harms that might otherwise be overlooked. Our collective task then is our collective task is to reap the social benefits of all these technologies and to avoid the pitfalls. The university's theme of living in a digital society aims to put the best minds on matters digital together with the best minds on living, together with the best minds on what we mean by society. In the past few weeks, the theme has awarded seed funding on projects that explore how the Internet of Things might in fact be facilitating domestic abuse, and how that might be stopped, on how social media can help build community resilience amongst Leicester South Asians, on how music can be made collaboratively over the internet, on music within virtual reality, and on digital fashion in the metaverse. It is a research theme in which we all have a stake, and anyone not currently on our mailing list to hear about our public events and funding opportunities may contact me or Gaia Rossetti to get added to that list. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So if I could perhaps ask all the directors to take a seat, and if people can think about the questions they'd like to ask, and indeed those of you who are at dialing into this, you can type a question and we'll get it sent through as well. Just because people are listening outside of the room, if you do have a question to ask, I'll ask you to speak into the microphone, otherwise those that elsewhere will never hear us at all. We do just have a sort of short amount of time for it, about sort of 10 minutes, because obviously if you ask academics to speak for 5 minutes, that's never going to work, is it? So thanks very much to all of you, and I hope you've got this.
Hi, I just want to ask you, what happens if your research doesn't fit into any of the themes, or it fits in all the themes?
I'll do the sort of any of it, you can do them.
Yeah.
If it fits into all of them. So, first of all, I should apologise. Obviously, Professor had McLaughlin should be here today. She's been called away on urgent university business, so otherwise she'd be saying what I'm about to say. You know, these aren't saying actually, in order to be a researcher here, you have to do one of these themes. It's a way of collecting together the things that we're strong at. So it doesn't mean at all that you have to fit into one of them, but I'll let others take the question if you fit into all of them. Rafi, I might ask you to start, just because we haven't heard from you yet. And you will need to use a microphone, I think, just so people at home can hear.
I think, can it work? Yeah, I don't know. But I'll shout. I think you can fit in any of them, really, because I think you've seen from the description from what we have discussed, our definition of the thematic is a DMU definition of the thematic, and that's where we started as a net zero. We're not going to do the net zero that is happening at Cambridge or Oxford. We are trying to facilitate the research that is at DMU and try to get that international, or national and international links on our strength. So I think you fit in all of them, to be honest, Lala.
In general.
No, I think
about the spin culture. I get Alistair Campbell to come and.
Yeah, no, I think where we are going with the thematic is really to facilitate that research that is already happening at DMU. So I don't see anyone not fitting.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to add to that? April, thanks. I think yeah.
I'll just take a second part of that about what it spans the themes before we get on. So I think if we collaborate with our colleagues and support things that work across the themes.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions at all? Yeah, thanks. If we go there and then pass it across that way, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, it's not an actual question, it's more of an offer. I work at Voluntary Action Leicestershire, literally just up the road from you, with the infrastructure organisation and deal with charities across Leicestershire. Currently on our database, we've got just under 6,000 voluntary organisations, and they range from your community activists wanting to make good in their sort of local area where they live, up to the larger branches of things like, cancer research, Age UK and so forth. And I think what I really want to say to you today is if you're wanting links into community groups, or you want links into research impact that we know others have done, that we have done, we're more than happy to help. And likewise, if you're also looking at trying to bring together maybe cohorts of people to try and get more of a community feel about what they're thinking about things and so forth, again, please do bear us in mind. We'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you so much for that, because I think what was very noticeable about all of the introductions that you gave us was that they all talked about the way in which you can relate to the community as well through the work that you're doing, and that's obviously a key part of what we're doing. If you could just send the microphone across there, I think. Yeah, thank you. It's just people at home won't get you if you do it that way. Thanks.
Thank you. I really appreciate for this coordination event, because I think it's kind of, we have sort of coordination is most important across different disciplines. My question is more specific. On this planet, there are several calls. For example, Peter Diamandis with money from Elon Musk, 100 million. They are looking for practical proposal for net zero, or basically fighting carbon on this planet. And I wonder why DMU, maybe we should pile together a proposal and try to compete.
Yeah.
Because it's $100 million. Thank you.
That would be nice. So I think there's a sort of question there which perhaps pertains to all of you, but it's a question about, how do we use the research themes as collectives to bring across really big ambition? I think that's what I'm kind of taking your question to be about, to kind of take us to places we haven't been before. So Kenneth, should we just start with you on that one? Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with living in a digital society, so I'll do my best to make this work. Thank you very much. It's an interesting suggestion. That's not the kind of funding that we would normally be looking at, but I think that would be an ideal opportunity for us to think about working cross-institutionally. Because while DMU probably couldn't access that fund on its own, if we were to work with institutions beyond the university, with other UK higher education organisations, why not? We have a chance. We do some research related to net zero that's quite unique to DMU. So we really should be thinking about how we can work more collaboratively with other institutions, with external stakeholders to apply for those kinds of bids.
Great. Does anyone else want to come in on that one? Yeah, thanks, Raheem.
I think net zero also connects with health, because I think health and well-being actually in turn produces the kind of outcomes that we need. And I think what is actually required is actually a bit more thinking more ambitiously, thinking creatively, and thinking outside the box in relation to how we work. And I think some of those things are not actually ready-made. I think we have to actually try and explore possibilities, and exploring possibilities actually makes the impossible possible.
Thank you. Any other questions from people? Yeah.
If I may, about the research themes themselves. So this idea was really developed about a year ago. We've been working on it as theme directors for about 3 to 6 months, depending on how long we've been in post. You know, we're not establishing the parameters of these themes and telling you this is what you should be doing. These parameters will evolve over time. And as our research evolves, as we bring in new people to the university who have different ideas, who have new areas of research, the themes will begin to adapt as well. The important thing about them is, and Lala raised the question of what if you fit in more than one theme, or indeed all of them, that these are not mutually exclusive, that my own work fits into a number of themes, although primarily peace, equality and social justice, also with well-being, for example, certainly with living in a digital society. So these themes are not set in stone, and we don't want to tell you this is what you must be doing in 5 years' time. They will evolve as we evolve and as the research evolves.
Thank you. I might just do that very cruel interview question that people always get, which is, you know, what does success look like? So, you know, at the end of your tenure leading these themes, what will you be pleased about if something has happened? And it's probably different for all of you. Mark, we'll set off at that end.
Well, obviously I'd like to deliver the first amateur football team, being a net zero football team from Leicester. That'd be quite exciting. But I think there's something more general about that, in that I think, and I wouldn't want to speak for the other theme directors, but we want to look back and demonstrate achievements for the university, and demonstrate that we've stimulated exciting research projects that have enabled funders to trust the university to invest in our research, and to actually demonstrate what all of us have said today, that there is excellent research going on in the university. Let's talk about it with confidence, and let's show off and position the university as a place where we can collaborate on great work. So that's my off the cuff. I wasn't expecting that question.
Anyone else want to come in? Yeah, thanks very much, Justin. Yeah.
I think one of the obvious ways to answer that question would be in terms of money, in terms of generating research income. Another obvious way to answer that question would be in generating research impact and creating a splash, or in developing research that genuinely has far-reaching social, economic and cultural ambitions. Those surely are at the heart of what we do. But I think one of the perhaps less obvious but very important things that I would like to see is that in 3 or 5 years' time, DMU is a university that students want to come to, and postgraduate researchers want to come to, because it is a place that is generating dynamic, internationally significant research. and it's a community of researchers that takes research seriously, and it's the forefront of our business. That for me would be a laudable objective.
Great, thank you, and that's a lovely place to end. I think I'll probably just do the flip side of that and to say, and when those people get here for those reasons, and when we are known in that way for having a hugely enhanced research reputation, and someone says to me, well, how did DMU do it? I can turn around and say, well, it was the research themes. So that's my challenge back to you. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I think there's still refreshments, there's still the boards out there if you want to add your ideas to it. But really the more important thing than attending today is to take part in the themes going forward. So do please contact the theme leads, and very best of luck to all of you in your jobs. Thank you.